All right guys, today we're going to show you how to check for a voltage drop. So we've got some stuff set up here, kind of going to go over it and give you a simple circuit and show you how to do it. So let's get into it. Hey guys, before we get into the video, we just finished filming it, and I'm a little concerned that it might be confusing, so I would really appreciate your feedback on that. Please watch to the end. Leave us some feedback if it is confusing so that we can remake the video and hopefully do it better. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the video. I've been thinking about how we could do this and teach you guys how to check for a voltage drop. Would love to be able to do it on a car. Sometimes it's difficult to do that. We're diagnosing cars, we're working on them all day long, and sometimes it's hard to get, to film and do all that when we're trying to get the cars out of here. So we've got I built a little basic simple circuit here with a light bulb and a fuse, and we're going to introduce a voltage drop in it. And then I'm going to kind of go over how this works and what you can use to test it with. We've got lots of different tools here to go through and see if they'll test it and how they'll work and if they will work for this. This is going to be one video to do this, and then when we do get a car in here and we're able to show it live on a car, we're definitely going to make a video with that, because I know that sometimes that makes more sense in our minds as mechanics and technicians. We think that way. So, but hopefully this will give you a good base for it. So let me kind of go over with you what we got. Before I do that, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and hit that bell notification. 88% of the people that watch our videos do not subscribe. So hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out, helps us get a reach out there. Plus you'll get notified when we release a video. So we really do appreciate it. So come on in, let me show you what we got for testing and what I've got set up here. So all I have is a little light bulb, no big deal, okay? And I've just got a simple circuit here. It just runs down, goes through the fuse, little 7.5 amp fuse, comes over. I do have another connection here, and I'll show you why in a minute. I could definitely hook this one up straight to the battery and light the bulb, but I wanted to put another connector in it. I'll explain that. When I connect this up, the bulb's going to light. Okay? So that's it. That's the circuit. Okay? So this is the point here where I'm going to put in a resistor. And I'll show you what I have for resistors, because I want to make it kind of realistic. So these are each one of these is a 2.5 ohm resistor. Okay, so I have 2 of them right now in line with each other, so that's going to be 5 ohms. Then I've got one that's just by itself, that's 2.5 ohms. And then I've got 2 running parallel to each other, so this is going to be about 1.3 ohms, something like that. Okay, right in that area. Okay, so we're going to put each one of those in this circuit, and I'm going to show you how to test for this voltage drop. And here's what we're going to use for it. Definitely going to use the infrared. I'm just going to show you the heat that's generated with a bad connection. It doesn't always find it, and it's not always going to be your go-to for something like this, but it definitely can be. So we're going to use that. We're going to use a voltmeter, because I know most everybody has a voltmeter, and you can 100% use this for voltage drops. I've got a couple of different test lights here. I'll explain to you the difference in those in just a minute. I've got the ever so popular power probe. Okay, so we're going to use that. And then I've got a little box that I made that I'm going to show you how we use that and why we would want to use that. Okay. Also have a scope. Can we check a voltage drop with a scope? Absolutely, and I'm going to show you how to do it. It's really good to check for voltage drops with a scope on something that's intermittent or the circuit's being activated on and off, because you can really see it clearly on a scope where sometimes a meter might miss it. But on a voltage drop, it's just happening. You've got a light bulb that's dim, okay? That meter will 100% find it for you. Okay, so before we get into the circuit, testing the circuit, and what we're looking at and what we're doing to test the circuit, I want everybody to understand what a voltage drop is, and I'm going to explain this in ways that help me to understand it. And I'm not an electrical engineer. Actually, my very best friend in the world is an electrical engineer, and I spent some time on the phone with him, kind of going over some different ways of explaining it. And he explains it like an electrical engineer, and I'm going to explain it like a mechanic, like a technician. So hopefully that helps you. And I know there's lots of different ways to do this, but this is how I think about it. So this is what we basically are going to have. We're going to have a simple circuit. I am going to have a fuse in it, so there is a fuse here. But all we're doing is, and a matter of fact, I'm just going to make this even easier to understand. We're going to come, okay. So we're just coming out of the positive. We're going to put a resistor in it. So this is going to be our voltage drop, okay? We're going to come out and we're going to go through a light bulb, okay? And then we're going to come back. Now the resistor is actually going to be in the negative side, because I want everybody to understand that we can have a voltage drop in the negative side as well as the positive side. A lot of times people, they only want to look at the positive side and go, oh, well, the positive side is good. You got two sides of that circuit. Here's the way that this helped me to think about what I'm looking at with a voltage drop. When we are coming out of the battery, okay, with a voltage, so we have a potential voltage in here, let's just say it's 12 volts. So between here and here is 12 volts. So if we put a meter and we connect our negative lead down to the battery, and we connect our positive lead to here, we're going to get 12 volts, right? That's what we should get, okay? So if we connect this meter to this point, what should we get? We should get 12 volts. That's the difference between here and here. We have 0 here, and we have 12 volts here, so we have 12 volts potential, right? So now let's go to the negative side. So this is the positive side of the bulb, and this is the negative. If I take that lead, the positive lead, okay, I'm on the negative side here, and I run it around to this positive side, or this negative side, I'm sorry. What should I have here? In a perfect world, we would have 0. This load consumed all of the voltage. So the voltage, if we think about it, let's think about it like water for a second. If we have water flowing through a pipe, and we have a container full of water, and we have water flowing through it, and it's running across a vein to turn something, what we theoretically want to use, what we want to do is we want to use all the water up to turn the vein. We want to have nothing left on the other side. That's basically what voltage is. Think of voltage as that flow, or as that movement of that water, okay? So theoretically, this load should use all the voltage up. That's why we should have 0 volts on the negative side. We're not going to have 0. There's going to be something there, okay? Because there's no perfect circuit in a car. But this is what we're used to seeing. Now, in this case, we have a resistor here, okay? So we have a resistor on that negative side. So you will not see 0 there. And this is what enlightened me on voltage drops. This thought process, this little thing that I'm about to show you. Think of each resistance as a hill, okay? So we come to this bulb. Well, this bulb is resistance. That's what the load is going to be. It's resistance. It should technically use all of the voltage up, like we just said. So think of this as a hill. Okay, let me get rid of that. So as the voltage comes out of here, it's got to go over this hill. So it's got to come out, go over that hill, and it's going to use up voltage going over the hill. Here's the kicker. If there's another hill somewhere else in the circuit, it has to save voltage to get to that and get over that. So this is a hill. Well, let's say that this is a 1 ohms of resistance, okay? And let's say that this is 1 ohm of resistance. Just makes it easy math, okay? That means it's going to use half the voltage up to get over this, okay? So that when we get to this point over here, if we think about it like this, I know this might be a little bit confusing, just bear with me, okay? This is the hill. We got to get over to this hill and come back. This is going to take 6 volts to get over that, because we still have to have 6 volts to get over that hill, okay? I hope that makes sense. It made sense to me. This basically, the voltage knows all the hills in the circuit. It's looking ahead in the circuit, and it goes, well, I've got that light bulb. That's a hill. I got to be able to get over that light bulb. I got to get over that resistance, but so I need X amount of voltage to get over it. But wait a minute, I got another hill down the road. I got to save my energy. Think about you, right? You've got to get over a hill, okay? So you're climbing a hill, but you know there's 2 more hills or another hill after that, right? Well, you got to save enough energy. Once you get over the first hill, you got to have enough energy to get over the next hill, okay? So you can't go over the first hill and use all your energy up. So that's what made it make sense to me. My buddy, he said to do it as water, you know, and think about water flowing and having a valve in it, and you use up some of that flow. If the valve is closed 50%, you're going to use up 50% of that flow to go through that valve. So you're only going to have 50% of that flow left. Maybe that makes sense for you, okay? But this is something that is, you have to understand this, because when we start testing this circuit, we got to know why would we have any voltage here, right? So if I took that meter right now, and I know I have this resistance here, okay, and I took that meter and I went to that negative side, I'm going to have 6 volts. Why? Because I've got another resistor to go over, right? I've got another hill to go over that's going to require the rest of my voltage, because there's 2 in there, okay? So I hope that makes sense. This is easy math. This is not what's going to happen in a car, okay? You know, this is going to be different ohm. This is going to be different. You're not going to split it evenly, but we don't care about that in general. What we're looking for is a voltage, okay? And that's what we're going to do here, okay? I hope this makes sense. So let's put it into use, okay? So what I'm going to do is I've got these 3 resistors, right? I think I went over them already. We've got 5 ohms, 2.5 ohms, and 1.3-ish ohms, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this resistor. This is a voltage drop. Imagine a bad connection in a car. You know, you've got a connector that's got some grime or buildup in it. You've got just a loose connection. You know, anywhere you've got a ground that's not tight, okay? Anywhere that you've got a bad connection, this is going to simulate that, okay? So there's our bulb lit, okay? We are getting the circuit. The circuit's completed, okay? So now let's see how we can test this. How would we test this, okay? So we're on the negative side of the circuit. So I wanted to put it on the negative because this holds true for the positive side also, but nobody ever thinks of the negative. So this is the negative side of the circuit. Our meter is on the negative battery post. You always want to start there, okay? So if I'm checking this, I got this bulb, it's in the back of the car, it's dim, okay? And I go to the bulb, I'm like, okay, well, I need to check for voltage drop at the bulb. First thing I'm gonna do is check, do I have power and ground at the bulb? You know, and we can do that. I will tell you that this is gonna have power and ground at this bulb, okay? So let's check it. We go to the bulb, and we're gonna check power and ground at the bulb. Okay, so here's our power. Here's our ground. What do we got? 8.8 volts, okay? So 8.8 volts. So we went back to the back of the car. We're like, hey, we've got a dim bulb. The bulb is still plugged in. The bulb has to be plugged in. Whatever you're checking, when you're checking for a voltage drop, the circuit must be live. If you're checking a starter circuit from the battery post down to the starter, you better be cranking that starter to check that. You can't check it with it not being used, okay? That's why ohming something out is worthless. If you took a battery, if I ohmed out a battery cable from the positive post down to the positive side of the starter, it's going to probably ohm out okay. It's a huge cable. Even if that cable is completely corroded inside and barely making connections and won't even turn the engine over, it's probably going to ohm out okay. It's why I don't like ohming things, okay? But this is a live circuit we're testing, okay? So the bulb is lit. You're at the back. You go and you check your powers and grounds. 8.8 volts. You're like, well, that's not enough. I mean, I got a battery voltage here. You know, I should have 12 volts or whatever the battery voltage is, close to it anyway. That's not enough. What do I got to do? Well, what's our next step? A lot of guys are like, I don't know what to do. I got a bad ground, or I got a bad, let me go check fuses, or let me show you how to check it. Negative side of the meter, okay? We're going to go, and we're going to hook up to the negative side of the battery. We got to start at the battery. We're going to work our way down, but we got to start here. So we don't know if it's on the positive side or the negative side, okay? So how much voltage difference do we have? This battery has 12.45 volts. Do we see that? 12.45 volts in this battery, okay? Now I will tell you this is not a perfect circuit. There's some voltage drops in this circuit already. Let's worry about the big one, okay? So 12.45 volts is what we have. So I'm on the negative side. I know I have 8.8 volts there, so roughly a 4 volt drop. Let's go through. Let's see what happens when I go from this point right here to back to the bulb, negative side of the battery to negative side of the bulb. The meter just shut off. 3 volts. So we have a 3 volt drop, okay? A 3 volt drop. So that's why I was showing you guys on this, right? Going from negative to negative. We want 0, but we have 3 volts, right? We have 3 volts now, okay? So why do we have, if I'm on the negative side of the battery and I'm on the negative side of the bulb, negative to negative, how do I have voltage? Well, I just showed you. We went from negative, right? And we're at this bulb and we're showing 3 volts. There's a resistance somewhere down the line. That voltage goes, hey, I got another hill I got to get over. So I've got to save some of my voltage to get over that hill, okay? Well, we know where the hill is. We put it in there, okay? So let's find out. This is a circuit in a car. What would we do? Okay? Well, we would take our meter and we would say, okay, I know that I'm bad here, okay? But I don't know where the drop is. Go to the next connector. Go look in your wiring diagram. Where's the next connector? Okay, what's the next easiest thing to get to? Don't be digging the car apart. Try to find the easiest thing to get to. If I've got a circuit that goes from a fuse box under the dash all the way to the back of the car, right, I need to break that thing into sections because I need to find this problem as quick as possible. So go to the next easiest connector, take your meter, right, and touch it. Well, what do we have? Still 3 volts. Okay, so we know that it's not between those 2 points that we just did at the bulb and at that first connector. Let's keep going. Here's our next connector. What are we at? 2.6 volts, so still got a lot, right? Probably a little bit of bad connection right here, right? So we still haven't found the problem. What if we go over to this connector? Now what do we got? There's the problem. 0.38 now. When you get the good number, okay, now we know between this point, okay, and follow my hand here, between that point all the way through here, this connector is not the problem. We know we're good here, right? We know the problem is somewhere between this connector and that connector. And sometimes, guys, it is that easy. Sometimes you're on one side of a connector and it's got 3 volts, and you're on the other side of the connector and it's got 0.3 of a volt. Guess what? The problem is in that connector. Take it apart. Now take it apart. Don't take it apart first. Find it. Now take it apart. Find out what's wrong with it. Fix it. You could have a wire. We had a Ford truck just recently that every time you turn the headlights on, the engine shut off. Okay? So what we found was a bad ground, a bad connection, not a bad connection to the ground, a bad wire going to the ground. It was about that far away from the ground eyelet, and it looked perfect. But the wire inside the insulation was broken. Once we determined that that was the point, and I wish we'd have done a video on it, we took the wire and we pulled on it, and all it was insulation. It just popped right in 2 pieces, right? So what we have to do is take that circuit and narrow it down, okay? Piece by piece. I hope this is making sense. We would do the same thing on the positive side. So if in this case we took this resistor, okay, see if we can't do this. Let's put a resistance in both sides. So now I've got 5 ohms in that and 2.5 ohms in the positive. There's the bulb. Okay? The bulb is dimmer, I can tell that right away. Okay, that bulb is dimmer than it was a minute ago. Okay, so now we got a dim bulb. Well, same thing. Okay, what would we do? How would we check for that resistance in the positive side? We would take the meter lead, right? One of the meter leads and put it on the positive post. Now, you know, we could do the positive to the positive. It works either way. It doesn't matter. You're just going to come up with a negative number. But if we go now to the bulb, let's just go to this point with the bulb. Instead of going all the way to the bulb, this is the first positive connection. What do we have? We have 1.74 volts. I know it says negative, but that's because I got the positive on the negative on the positives there. So we have 1.74 volts. Well, that means there's a voltage drop somewhere between this connection, okay, and the positive battery post, okay? So now we've got to go back and find that bad connection. Again, we would go down the line. We would go, okay, find the next connector. Well, let's say this is the next connector right here, okay? We would touch it. We would go in there and say, well, what do I have? 1.4 volts. I still have resistance there, right? I haven't found it yet. I come over here, 0.33. There's my problem. My problem is between those 2 points. Now, I know it's easy because it's right here. Sometimes it's, let's do this. Let's go back to the negative. I'm putting it in the negative side. So forget about the positive side now. I do have the fuse out of it, so we got to be careful a little bit here. Okay. We're back on the negative side. We know we've got a negative voltage drop. We go over here. What do we have? 2.93 volts. Okay? So that means from negative to negative, we have 2.93 volts. What is that? What is that telling us? That's telling us that somewhere up ahead, there's another hill, right? Voltage is like, I have to have 2.93 volts to get over that hill, to get back to that negative battery cable, okay, the battery terminal. Okay, so we get to this point in the car, we can touch that, and we can go, okay, still 2.6 volts. I've still got a problem somewhere ahead of me, somewhere in that circuit between me and that, wherever this meter lead is, which at this point is the negative side of the battery, there's a hill, okay? All right, so let's just say I can't get to that side. I come all the way back here to this one. This is a connector, let's say, that is further forward in the car, and you do that. What do I got? Nothing. 0.01, okay? Now I know between this point and the last point that I checked is the resistance. Now I got to break that circuit down a little bit. I might have to take something apart, pull some, you know, some sill plates off or whatever I have to do to get to the harness a little bit. And I got to get to that wire and start narrowing it down until I find where it gets to be the voltage drop again, and then I'll know I'm on the other side of it. Okay? So I know this seems a little complicated, and it's really not complicated, and I might be complicating it. I'm hoping I'm not. I'm hoping you get it. So I'm a little leery right now of, as I've gone through this, should I show you some other tools and stuff. Let me show you this tool at least. I'm going to save the scope for the next video. I want you guys to comment on this video. I want you to say, hey, that was helpful. I kind of understand it. I want you to say, hey, my brain is totally fried now because you confused the living crap out of me, and you need to re-explain it, and I'll make another video, okay? But I need your feedback on this before we start showing scopes and that kind of stuff, because I need to know that you guys have this. I do want to show you this guy, because this is what a lot of people have. And you guys know I'm a scope guy. You know I love pulling that scope out. I use it all the time, and I would use it for voltage drops. Although for basic stuff, I am using this meter for basic voltage drops. But let's go ahead, hook this up, all right? Now I know this has got a screen on it, it's got voltage on it, right? So if I hook that up, it's going to beep and it's going to say 12.5. Okay, here's what will happen with a lot of people. They'll take that power probe, they'll go back to the back of the car, okay? And they're looking for power and ground. So they'll take and they'll go to the bulb and they'll say, all right, in this particular case, it's not going to light up, but here it is, I got 3 volts basically. So it's showing me the voltage drop. It doesn't light up green, okay? Let's go to this side. It's showing 11.6, so it's not even beeping there, okay? A lot of guys will just wait for it to beep, okay? Here's the problem with the beep. What did I do with that little resistor I just had? Did I drop it? There it is. So I'm going to put in, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put in this resistor. This is 1.3 ohms of resistance. The bulb is fairly bright. It's got a little resistance in the circuit, though. Will it beep here? Nope, it's showing 1.3, which is what we just put in there. So in this case, this tool will work. Let's go to this side. Shows the positive side. $11.8. Okay? So will this work in this case? Yes. Here's where you need to be careful with this. There's a threshold inside this thing to turn that beeper on. If you're going to use this, look at the voltage, okay? And actually know, do you have a voltage drop or not? Because just because it beeps, I don't know what the threshold is here. Maybe that's something to test on this thing. But if it beeps and it says, oh, I got a good ground, but you've got a half a volt, voltage drop, on some circuits that's not good, okay? So, depending on what circuit you're checking, this may or may not work for you. In this particular case, it worked fine, okay? One thing that you need to remember, and I think, I would please leave comments down there, because if I can make this video again and make it a little bit more where it's easier to understand, I will rehearse that until I think I got it. But the thing that I want you to take out of this is this. Number one, the circuit must be loaded. So let's say that we've got a engine module, all right, and we've determined the engine module is no good. So, or we think it's no good because it's not communicating or it's not able to do something that it's supposed to do. What do we have to check? Powers, grounds, communication lines to the engine, to the module, whatever module it might be. All right, let's say the communication line's off. We're not worrying about that today. Powers and grounds to that module. We have to know they're good. All right, some modules have multiple powers. Some of them only have one power. Some of them have multiple grounds. Some of them have one ground. Doesn't matter. We have to test them all. But we have to load them to test them. So I can't just say, okay, let's just say that this is my connector going to my engine module, right? I got a big old connector here, but this is my ground wire in it, right? And I unplug it from the engine module, and I go, do I have good ground there, right? Okay, well, let's check that. Let's put a 5 ohm resistor in it. Wouldn't use this tool for this, but let's use the meter. Sorry, guys, now I got a mess. Negative to negative. Am I good? Got no voltage. Negative to negative. I got no voltage. Is it good? It's not loaded. There's nothing happening here. So right? There's no current going through this thing. It's going to check 0 every single time. Okay? Let's load it. How would I load it? I'd use this little box right here. I made this many, many years ago. But you can use a headlight bulb. You can use anything. Anything that's going to put a load on it. A little bit of bulb. Just know how many amps it's taken. If you notice, I got this marked. 2.5 amps. If I put 2 bulbs in it, it's 5. On and on and on, right? So 2.5 amp bulb in there. I'm going to load this circuit. This is how we would load a circuit on a engine control module. For an engine control module, is I would take this. It's the ground circuit. Take this to the positive. So now I got a bulb hooked up, right? This is the circuit, right? I'm at the connector, and I go, boop, and I want to see the bulb light up, which it's not doing. Then I take my meter, and I've got, that's too much of a voltage drop. Got something else going on here. Hang on. Nope. Let's get it back on there. So this is a 5 ohm resistor. That's a lot of resistance. 5 ohm resistor. If I check it, I've got no ground, right? Because there's too much resistance there. Okay. If it's good, I'll hook it up and I'll check it. There's a tenth, a tenth, not even a tenth of a volt voltage drop. That's good. Okay? So I hope that's making sense. What I'm basically telling you is you got to load that circuit. At the engine control module, when it's on that circuit, it's turning on fuel injectors, it's turning on coils, it's turning on solenoids, other solenoids of some type, right? Purge valves, things like that. So it's pulling amperage, right? It's pulling current. Current is flowing. We have to check that voltage, that circuit under those conditions. We have to get things flowing. Well, how do we do that? Just substitute, a couple of amps, bulb or something in there, right? Do you do that on the positive side and the negative side? If you unplug the module, now you've got to put something in there to activate that circuit. Know what circuit you're on. Make sure you know what circuit you're on, okay? Don't be putting this thing on something that you don't know what you're on, okay? So I might have just muddied the water even more right there. I hope not. I'm hoping this is coming across. My camera guy's like, yeah, you're muddying the water. So, I get it. This is difficult, and it's difficult in this kind of, usually I do this in person and guys can ask questions and we touch stuff and do stuff. So please leave comments down below, okay? And let me know. And we will, if necessary, redo this. If not, if everybody's like, yeah, I pretty much got that, then we'll get into the scope stuff. We'll start putting circuits in, start doing circuit testing with the scope, voltage drop testing with the scope. One other thing that I did tell you I was going to do, I was going to show you something. So when you do have resistance, every single time you have resistance, wherever that resistance is, I promise you there will be heat. So if we come here, if we look at that resistor, we see that resistor is hot. Okay? So the more resistance, the hotter it's going to get. That's why you see connections. When you see connections that are burned up, that are melted, when you see a connector that's melted, you're working on a, let's say you're working on a car with a blower motor, and the blower motor is, the connector's melted on the blower motor, okay? Well, you can guarantee yourself that you've had a bad connection there. I was trying to get this one in there. I think I've done something on that there. So if you see a connector that's melted, there is resistance there. It got hot, okay? And what caused it to get hot was not a good connection. Resistance formed, and it got hot, okay? Anywhere you have resistance, it's going to get hot. It's going to generate heat. So just remember that. Sometimes you can use this and go around, and if you know it's in a circuit somewhere and you can't kind of get to it and you're in the harness, maybe you can run that there and see something hot. Takes a pretty good bit to be able to see it with that, but I wanted you to at least see it. Okay, so I hope that was good. I hope you liked it, and if not, let me know what we can do different or how I can, if I need to do it again, I'm more than happy to. So we'll see you in the next one, and that's all I got to say.